Today's video is sponsored by Hit Point Press and their Big Bads, new campaign-ready monsters each and every month. Alright guys, Jameson and Alex here. Today we're going to be talking about the Weapon Forger Fighter from Crystalpunk, which is kind of like a cyberpunk fantasy cross hybrid, so it's kind of got some like sci-fi vibes to it, but it still stays in the fantasy theme with arcane crystals and stuff.
Yes.
As an alternative.
The crystals.
Yes. So, if you're new to the channel, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe to be entered in our D&D Beyond Players bundle.
Free stuff is always amazing.
If you're new, what we're going to do is go through all of the abilities gained in the subclass. Then we're going to rate the roleplay, combat, and synergy based on how the abilities gained improve on the base class abilities. Mm-hmm. All that being said, let's jump straight into it.
To give a quick little overview what we're looking at with this subclass, very quickly, one of our play group, and I had some conversations because I like to kind of poke his brain for things. Kind of our captain theory crafter of our group, and this is right up his alley. He is like it feels like like a Destiny character, like from Destiny, Destiny, sure. Destiny 2, the Bungie shooter, because you got a lot of weapon mods and things like that, which create a lot of interesting opportunities. Jameson made a different comparison, which is also, I think, to me, if you take our other friend's idea and yours and go, ta-da.
Yes, my concept comparison for this is Aphelios from League of Legends, because you have multiple different weapons, and each one of them has a different ability that goes along with it. So it kind of has a similar feel to it where you have array of weapons.
And don't worry, we address the problem of having so many weapons very, very quickly by starting off with Hot Swap. You're adept at quickly switching between weapons, even in the heat of battle. You can draw and stow any amount of weapons on your turn, even when you would normally be able to only draw and stow one. Additionally, gain the proficiency in Tinker's Tools or Rune Tech Tools, which are a specific set of tools that apply to this campaign setting.
Right. Then getting into the major component of the subclass is the martial modifications. Also, at level 3, you learn to infuse your weapons with arcane mods, and with that, you can learn multiple weapon mods, 5 weapon mods of your choice, which are detailed, which we'll get to in a minute.
Yeah,
learn 1 additional weapon mod of your choice at 7th, 10th, and 15th level. Each time you learn a new mod, you can replace an old one with a different one. And then applying the weapon mods, when you finish a long rest, you can choose 3 weapons and install 1 of your known mods to each. You must install a different mod to each weapon, and you can't install a mod if that weapon already has a mod installed, so 1 per weapon. Once a weapon is modded, only you are considered proficient with it, so you can't mod it and give it to somebody else.
Which is a very important distinction.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And then you can choose 1 additional weapon to install a mod into at the end of a long rest once you reach 7th level for a total of 4, 1 more at 15th level for a total of 5. They must abide by the above prerequisites. So basically, just as you scale up with your leveling, as you get extra attacks and things like that, you're going to be able to access more.
And as you get more access to more modifications, you get to have more of them available to you at once.
Right. And going along with those, they have charges. Each mod has 3 charges, getting all back on a long rest. And then when you make a weapon attack with one of your modded weapons, it gets and activate the mod, expending 1 of the charges. You can apply additional features to that. You must choose to do so before you make the attack roll, which is important because it gives that chance of failure on there that you have to kind of risk.
That's a very important distinction for any ability that triggers on an attack, whether you choose to do it after you hit, before you hit, or before you roll to hit. That's very, very important.
This is going to sound a little similar to Divine Smite, because it is. On a weapon attack hit, it deals an extra 2d8 damage. Sounds familiar. The damage type of the weapon changes to the damage type indicated by the weapon mod. We'll get to those. And any additional effect that comes along with it. There's usually saving throws that go along with that, which are based on your intelligence modifier. So, yeah, there's going to be some interesting utility that comes along with those mods, which we'll get to in just a minute.
Yep. Also, level 7, we have Arcane Artisan. You learn the Identify spell and can cast it without expending a spell slot a number of times equal to your intelligence modifier, again, making it valuable to you. Intelligence is your spell casting ability for this spell, and you regain all expended uses when you finish a long rest. Additionally, you ignore all class, race, and spell requirements for attuning to or using a magic item. Feels very artificer-y in that vein. And providing the magic item is a weapon or a wand.
Yes.
That's a very interesting additional, besides being, swords and maces and all this kind of stuff, and wands. Okay?
Weapons.
Yep. At 10, we also have Lingering Magic. When you make an attack with and expend a charge on one of your modded weapons, some of its magic lingers. The next time you make an attack with a different modded weapon on the same turn and expend one of its charges, you have advantage on the attack roll. So if you've fired a charge from one weapon, swap to another, and want to fire a charge from that weapon, that second one that you're expending a charge on will have advantage on its attack.
And the nice thing that goes along with that is if you do miss with the first one, it's going to at least give you advantage on the next attack, at the very least.
It gives you both bad luck proof and kind of like stacking combo if you do hit the first one. It's like, oh, this is going to be really, really painful now.
Yes. And then lastly, at 18, we have our capstone backup ammo. While you're holding one of your modded weapons, you can use a bonus action to reload it. Regains one of its expended charges. You can use this feature 3 times. Regain all uses on a long rest. So just 3 extra mods per day, basically. So those are all of the major abilities. Now we'll get into the modifications. So with these, we'll put them all up on screen. If you need to pause, go ahead. But there are a ton of these. So we're going to try to get through them quickly and efficiently. So first up, we have Boost, which changes the damage to Thunder, and it moves you 15 feet in a direction of your choice, not provoking opportunity attacks. Another similar option is Bounce, which changes the damage to Force damage, and it's a strength save to push the creature 15 feet in a direction of your choice, but you can't push it up. And then it automatically succeeds if it's more than 1 size larger than you.
Similar to a grapple, scale as far as that goes.
And then Burn, weapon ignites, dealing fire damage. On hit, choose a different creature within 10 feet, and that creature takes extra fire damage equal to 1d4 plus your intelligence modifier.
It's a little bit of a splash damage effect there. Chill will turn the damage to cold, obviously. On hit, the targets must make a Constitution saving throw or have their speed reduced to 0 until the end of their next turn. Cloak will change the damage to necrotic, and immediately after making the attack, you become invisible until the end of your next turn. The invisibility does end early if you make an attack or cast a spell. Then we have probably my personal favorite with Confuse, because A, it does psychic damage, which is great, and on a hit, a target must make a wisdom saving throw or use all of their movement to move in a random direction at the start of their next turn and roll a d8 and assign each direction to a face, north, northeast, all that jazz.
And provokes opportunity attacks because they're moving on their turn.
That's correct.
So it's nice.
The direction is not against of not their will, but they are still moving through. They're not being kicked away or something.
Heal. Weapon is infused with radiant damage. On hit or miss, one creature of your choice other than you regains hit points equal to 1d4 plus your int mod. Creature must be within 5 feet of you or within 5 feet of the target of the attack. So you could hit something that's next to a creature or someone standing next to you. You also have Horrify, which is psychic damage again. You must make a wisdom save or be frightened until the end of your next turn. Infect, which is poison damage. On hit, target must make a con save or be poisoned until the end of their next turn. And then we have Manifest, which changes to force damage. Hit or miss, you choose an empty space within 30 feet of you to create a wall of pure magic that lasts for a minute. The wall is 5 foot by 10 foot panel that is 6 inches thick, and you can place it in any orientation, meaning it can act as a platform. The wall can float in midair, ignoring gravity, and can hold up to 8,000 pounds of weight. Lastly, the wall has an AC and number of hit points equal to your intelligence score.
Next up is Melt, which gives you acid damage, and on a hit, the target's AC is reduced by an amount equal to your intelligence modifier until the start of your next turn. So not just your benefit, for everybody else that goes before him. That's going to be terrifying.
That's probably one of my more favorite ones.
That's the other one. It's this should be your opener, and then you do whatever else you want to do the rest of it.
It's like Sunder.
Yeah, pretty much. It's Sunder Armor, basically. Neutralize will be lightning damage, and on a hit, targets must make a Constitution saving throw or be unable to cast spells or use magic items until the end of their next turn. Another interesting one. Next up, we have Project, which is a melee-only weapon mod. It will change it to radiant damage, and your reach for the attack increases to 60 feet. Additionally, any other melee attacks you make with this weapon on this turn also deal radiant damage and benefit from the range increase. So that's very nifty. The other melee option we have is Pull. Does change the damage to lightning, and immediately before making the attack, you can choose one target within 30 feet of you that is no more than 1 size larger than you, again, like grappling. Must make a strength saving throw, be pulled towards you until it's within 5 feet of you. So you can imagine pull it within your normal melee range.
Get over here.
Yeah, exactly.
Then we have Safeguard. It pulses with radiant damage. Hit or miss, you gain temp HP equal to 1d4 plus your int mod. Then we have our last two, which are ranged only options. First is Scope. It deals lightning damage. Your range for the attack is doubled. You ignore half and 3/4 cover for the attack. You don't suffer disadvantage on the attack roll as a result of being prone. And lastly, we have Seek, which is also ranged only. The weapon locks onto your target and curves to seek them, firing bolts that deal force damage. If you have seen the target within the last minute, you can attack them even if you can't see them, and you don't suffer disadvantage on the attack roll if the target is invisible. Your attack travels freely around corners or through openings to reach your target. You also ignore half cover and 3/4 cover for this attack.
That will be all of the abilities and all the modifications you could put on your character in here, so quite a bit going on there. With that said, we'll move on to the ratings portion of the video, asterisk as always.
Yes, so when we're talking about roleplay, we're talking about interacting with the world around you, interacting with NPCs, non-combat scenarios, avoiding combat, basically things outside of the initiative order. Not talking about your class fantasy, history, lore, background, that's on you as a player. We can't rate you, but we can rate the abilities gained in the subclass and how they might improve your potential in those roleplay scenarios.
That's right.
So, looking at this, you may notice pretty quickly that there's not a whole lot going on in roleplay. The main things coming from this subclass are going to be your proficiency with Tinker's Tools, the ability to cast Identify a few times a day, potentially, depending on what your int mod is, and some niche potential use with ignoring attunement requirements. Could come into play, but most likely not going to.
Yeah.
So with that, we're just going to get right to the point. 1.5 out of 5. Yep. Not much focus on the roleplay.
Normally, if it just exists, if a subclass exists, it gets a 1. So we would just a little bit of a something above that to 1.5. Obviously, a much heavier focus on combat here when half the thing is about weapon swapping and weapon mods and that kind of stuff. Lets you change damage types and all that jazz. That's exactly what you're going to be getting here, and that is absolutely the case. Normally, you're swapping between just one weapons in a turn. This lets you just fire, swap, hit with a sword, fire, all kinds of crazy shenanigans. And again, it's one of the most versatile and customizable. This feels also kind of warlocky.
Yeah, like
in the vein because of all the invocations you normally have with warlock. This is always mods, so you can have 3 or 4 different people playing this exact same thing. And they would be completely different. Yeah. Which, again, is very interesting. You're getting a chance to do a Paladin Smite, like extra damage. It's built into every single one of these. And if you keep a good variety, you always be able to overcome damage resistances, immunities, and certain things. So if this guy's resistant to fire damage, I'm not going to use my mod that does fire damage. I'm going to use the cold one or the necrotic one or whatever else in the case. And it's always good to have one of those force or psychic ones because those damages are very resistant. The Identify spell, it still has not necessarily some use in combat, but it's used for combat because it would let you know more about items, so you can maybe... Sure. Well, this is a sword. Well, maybe it has a really cool effect that you would be able to use in combat if you knew about it. So again, indirect help, but knowledge is power. That's right. I said it. Then besides that, you getting to give yourself advantage when you use a charge, and then firing again using an extra charge, and encouraging you to do that more and more often, especially when you get access to 5 of these at a time, and you have 4 attacks. You have plenty of time to do these. Right. Let alone when you action surge, you already have the choice to, attack a bunch of times as a fighter. It's what you do, and then when you can action surge, you could fire a bunch of these charges for a ton of burst damage on a single turn if you really, really wanted to. And finally, with the 18 capstone, you're getting a chance to get a charge back with that. Really only limitations you have here is the limited number of charges you have per day for each individual mod. Yeah, you're going to have a bunch of mods, but you can't just abuse what you think is the best one or two over and over and over again because you can only have one mod at a time. Each one must be unique of the ones you're using. And the whole concept that Jameson likes to call and use, not call and coin the term, I don't think, but
definitely not.
But uses it a lot. Is this definitely falls into the mad situation. But we will cover that more on the synergy side, I think. With all that being said, limitations are there, but a ton of versatility is there, and I'm a very strong fan of versatility. Went with a 4 out of a possible 5. Limitations on the mad side of things, number of uses, but overall, there's really good burst opportunity, versatility for different damage types and ranges, and ignoring some quirky situations.
Yeah, the big thing, again, and kind of pulling this into synergy, is there is some multi-ability score dependency concerns with a lot of the saves. Well, all of the saves are based on your intelligence modifier. So, yes, you can do a different damage type and do a little bit of extra damage, potentially, but there is that risk as well that you have to declare it before the attack is made.
This is correct.
So there's a chance of failure for there, unlike Paladins where you can hit and then smite.
Yes.
So there is that kind of concept that has some concern to it. But again, at level 10, you're getting kind of some protection against that. But even with that, you're gonna have to burn through them pretty quickly if you want to do that. So, and the other thing is too, with extra attacks, yes, you're a fighter, you get more uses, which you're gonna be thinking, well, I could do, potentially if all of your attacks hit, 2d8 per attack plus your weapons attacks, you're gonna be doing a big chunk of damage, but you're also gonna burn through 4 mods, assuming they all hit.
Right.
So you can only do that a couple times a day. So in comparison to something like a spellcaster who can cast a lot of spells, I mean, Fireball's 8d6 to multiple creatures at one time for a 3rd level spell. So
ideally, yes.
Looking at it, it is fire damage, but so there is this kind of back and forth between damage type and utility. But there is lots of options with utility on here, and it does empower your basic attacks. Just in general, it's going to give you extra buffs, raise that damage floor up, some extra effects potentially, but unless you really double down on the intelligence mod, they're most times probably not going to be very effective. Because most of them are strength or wisdom saves, and most of the time creatures are going to be proficient in those saves. It's pretty common.
Especially when you get into the higher, higher CRs, they get those double-digit CRs on up. Things are more likely just to have better stats across the board.
Right. So there is that. I think probably the best way to go about building this would be focused dex and intelligence.
Yeah. And
that way you're going to be playing more of a ranged fighter. And, you can still have a ton of weapons. So you maybe have a rapier or a different, like 2 daggers or, some dex-based melee weapons as well.
So you can grab one of those melee buffs, either the one to pull somebody to you to get them to you if you really wanted to, or the projector, you got to reach somebody with that radiant damage. Because radiant damage is a really great damage type.
Yeah. So that's probably the most optimal way to build it. You could go, typical strength con or, dex con kind of thing, but then your effects are going to fall off. So
but if you don't use a lot of the ones that take saving throws, that is another option.
Right, exactly. So with that, you have lots of options, extra effects. We gave it a 4 also in the synergy.
Yep.
There's just a little bit of concern there there's a little bit of risk involved. If you're before level 10, it's very possible you could use all of your mods in a day and not get any effect because you missed the attacks. It's possible.
It's possible.
And early on, too, you have to think, up until level 5, you only get 1 attack a turn outside of Action Surge. So you get extra attack. So you only can do 1 mod per turn anyways. Up until that point, then you can do 2 until you get your 3rd extra attack. So it kind of scales with you.
Which is good.
So it doesn't let you just blow stuff up at early levels because of that. Which is nice.
Yes.
But very interesting, flavorful kind of thing. Again, if you're looking for a Philios or, some kind of crazy weapon master, this could be right up your alley.
Absolutely.
But that's it for today, guys. If you enjoyed the video, don't forget to like, subscribe, hit the bell notification so you know when all of our new videos are coming out. Thanks again to our sponsors. If you want to see more of this kind of stuff with a different potential setting, like more sci-fi feel as well, just to kind of branch out, we thought we'd try these fantasy, sci-fi hybrid crossover things. See how you guys like it. So
very Blade Runner-y, I guess. Does kind of feel like that a little bit.
It really definitely does have the fantasy side to it. So it's not just like pure sci-fi either. No. So it's interesting. So if you want to see more stuff kind of outside the box, please let us know. But that's it for today, guys. As always, thanks for watching. Thanks to our sponsor, Hit Point Press, and their big bads, bringing you a new boss each and every month. Paragon the Weathermaker is October's big bad. Can you ground Paragon, or will the Weathermaker cloud your judgment? History, lore, everything you need to throw these villains into your campaign.
Create some fun opportunities and unique things to throw at your most experienced players would not see coming.
So check out the link in the description down below.